It was a bright Sunday morning in early spring. The sky looked soft and blue, and the air was cool and fresh. I woke up early because Sundays were my favorite days. Every Sunday, my best friend Tom and I went for a walk in the park. We had done this since we were 10 years old. Now we were 13, and it was a small thing that still made me happy. Usually, Tom came at 10 o'clock. I liked that. I had time to eat breakfast, brush my hair, and choose what to wear. I never wore anything fancy, but I always wanted to look nice for our walks. I didn't know why, but I did. That morning, I was still brushing my hair when I heard a knock on the door. I looked at the clock. It was only 9. I walked to the door and opened it. "Tom, you're early," I said. He smiled. "Good morning. Happy Sunday." I looked at him. He was wearing a new blue t-shirt and his usual sneakers. His hair was a little messy. He looked happy but also a bit nervous. "You're 1 hour early," I said. "I'm not ready yet." "You don't need to be ready for a walk," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked, surprised. "I came to visit you at home," he said with a small smile. "Just let me in, and the rest you can imagine." I laughed softly. "You sound strange today." But I opened the door wider, and he came in. Tom had never come inside my house before. He usually waited outside while I got my jacket. My parents were not home that day. They went to visit my aunt in another town. The house was quiet. I felt a little shy, even though Tom was my best friend. He looked around the living room. "Your house feels nice," he said. "It's warm." "Thank you," I said, trying to sound calm. "Do you want something to drink?" "Maybe some water," he said. I went to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses. When I came back, he was looking at the photos on the wall. There was one of me as a baby and another of me with my parents on a beach. "You look so small in this one," he said, smiling. "That was when I was 6, I said. "We went to the seaside that summer." He smiled again. "You looked happy." I gave him the glass. "You came early, Tom. Is everything okay?" He took a sip of water and looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "It's my birthday today." I opened my eyes wide. "Oh no! I forgot!" He laughed. "It's fine. I didn't tell you on purpose. I wanted to see if you would remember." I felt bad. "You turned 13 today, right?" "Yes," he said proudly. "Well, happy birthday," I said. "I should have bought you something." "You don't need to buy me anything," he said softly. "I just wanted to see you." I didn't know what to say. For a moment, I looked at the floor. My heart felt warm, but also a bit confused. We were friends, but his eyes looked different that morning. He put his glass down. "Can I see your backyard?" he asked. "Sure," I said. We walked outside. The grass was still wet from the morning dew. The garden was small but full of flowers. My mother liked to plant pink and yellow ones every spring. Tom looked around with interest. "It's nice here," he said. "It feels calm." We stood there for a while. I could hear birds singing from the trees. The air smelled like fresh grass. Tom turned to me. Do you remember the first time we went to the park? Of course, I said. We were 10. You fell into the pond because you wanted to catch a frog. He laughed loudly. Yes, and you screamed so loud that the ducks flew away. I smiled. That was funny. I liked that day, he said. You were the first person who didn't laugh at me. I did laugh, I said, giggling. But I helped you out of the pond, so that makes it fine. Tom looked at me again. His face turned serious. Liz, he said quietly, you are my best friend. You know that, right? Of course, I said. You're mine too. He took a small step closer. But sometimes I think maybe it's more than friendship. I froze. I didn't expect that. I looked at him, unsure what to say. He looked down and said, Forget it. It's just, I feel happy when I'm with you. That's all. I stayed quiet for a few seconds. My heart was beating faster, but I didn't want him to see that. I tried to smile. That's nice, Tom. I'm happy when I'm with you too. He looked at me again, but this time his eyes looked softer. Then it's okay, he said. I just wanted you to know. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then he said, Let's go to the park now. Okay, I said, still thinking about his words. We started walking. The park was only 10 minutes away. The path was quiet except for the sound of our steps. When we reached the gate, I saw families walking with small children and people jogging. The trees were full of green leaves. The sun made small lights on the path. We followed our usual route near the pond. The water was calm, and some ducks swam near the edge. Tom picked up a small stick and drew a line in the sand. 13 feels strange, he said. I don't feel different, but everyone keeps asking how it feels to be older. I laughed. Maybe you'll feel older tomorrow. He smiled. Maybe, or maybe not. We walked for a long time. We talked about school, games, and movies. Then Tom stopped walking. He looked at the big oak tree near the pond and said, Do you know what I wished for when I blew my candles this morning? No, I said. What did you wish for? He looked at me and smiled softly. I wished for more Sundays with you. I felt quiet again. His words stayed in my head. I wanted to say something kind, but I couldn't find the right words, so I just smiled back. The park was quiet that morning. The air was gentle, and the light moved slowly between the leaves. We sat down on a wooden bench under the tree. I could hear the soft sound of water and the wind in the grass. Tom looked at the sky. Do you think we'll always be friends? I thought for a moment. Yes, I said. Why not? He didn't answer. He just smiled a little. Then he took something out of his pocket. It was a small paper box. He handed it to me. What's this? I asked. Open it, he said. I opened the box. Inside, there was a small silver bracelet with a tiny heart on it. For me? I asked softly. Yes, he said. I bought it last week. I wanted to give it to you today. I felt warm inside. It's beautiful, I said. Thank you. He looked shy. You don't have to wear it if you don't want to. I will, I said quickly. I put it on my wrist and smiled. It fits perfectly. He smiled too. Good. We stayed there for a long time, not saying much. The sky slowly turned brighter, and the park started to fill with more people. I looked at the bracelet again and felt something I couldn't explain. It was still friendship, but it also felt like something new. After a while, Tom stood up. Let's go get some ice cream, he said. It's my birthday, but you can pay. I laughed. No way. It's your birthday. You pay. He laughed too. Okay, fine. But next time, it's your turn. We walked to the small ice cream shop near the gate. I watched him order chocolate and vanilla, just like always. He turned to me and smiled. To many more Sundays, he said. I smiled back. To many more Sundays. We didn't know it yet, but that Sunday would be the last one we would walk together like that. Before I continue rest of the story, please like, subscribe, share, and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot to me. Now let's continue. The next Sunday came, but that morning felt different. The sky was cloudy and gray. The air was cool and smelled like rain. I waited for Tom as always. He usually came at 10 o'clock, but by 10:30 he still wasn't there. I looked at the clock again and again. I tried not to worry, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. Finally, at almost 11, the doorbell rang. I ran to open it. Tom, I said. You're late. He looked tired. His hair was wet and his jacket was damp. He smiled weakly. Sorry, Liz. I had to help my dad this morning. That's okay, I said, but I could see that he wasn't his usual happy self. Are you all right? He nodded. Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired. We started walking to the park. The streets were quiet. Some small puddles shone on the ground after a short morning rain. Tom didn't talk much. Usually, he was full of stories, always laughing or joking. That day, he looked down most of the time. When we reached the park, the wind began to blow softly. The trees made a quiet sound. We walked near the pond, the same place where we always went. Did something happen? I asked finally. He stopped and looked at the water. My dad got a new job, he said slowly. That's good news, isn't it? I asked, trying to sound cheerful. He looked down. Yes, but it's far away, in another town. I felt my heart sink. How far? 3 hours by car, he said. We're moving next week. I stopped walking. Next week? That's so soon. He nodded. I wanted to tell you earlier, but I didn't know how. I felt quiet for a moment. The park suddenly looked colder. The wind blew harder. So this is our last Sunday? I asked. He looked at me and gave a small, sad smile. Yes. Our last one here. I didn't know what to say. My chest felt heavy, but I didn't want to cry. Tom was my best friend. He was the person I spent every Sunday with. We shared jokes, stories, and secrets. I couldn't imagine the park without him. We sat down on our usual bench under the big oak tree. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then Tom said quietly, "I'll miss this place. I'll miss you, Liz." I looked at him. "I'll miss you too," I said softly. "It won't be the same." He looked at the bracelet he gave me last week. "You're still wearing it," he said. "Of course I am," I said. "You gave it to me." He smiled a little. "Good. Then maybe you won't forget me." I looked at him, feeling a mix of sadness and warmth. "I could never forget you." We sat there in silence again. Around us, people walked by, some laughing, some playing with their dogs. The world kept moving, even though it felt like mine had stopped for a moment. After a while, I said, "When are you leaving?" "Friday," he said. "Early morning." "That's only 5 days away," I whispered. He nodded. "Yeah." We started walking again. The path was wet, and small drops of rain began to fall. I didn't care. I just wanted to stay with him for as long as possible. "Will you write to me?" I asked. "Of course," he said quickly. "Every week." "And I'll write to you too," I said. "Promise." He looked at me and smiled again, but it was a quiet smile. "You better keep that promise," he said. We reached the small ice cream shop near the park gate. Tom looked at it and said, "Let's go in, for old time's sake." Inside, it smelled like sugar and chocolate. The man behind the counter smiled. "2 ice creams again?" he asked. "Same flavors?" Tom nodded. "Chocolate for me, vanilla for her." The man laughed. "You two are always the same." We took our ice creams and sat at the small table by the window. The rain started falling harder now, hitting the glass softly. "Do you remember when we first came here?" Tom asked. "Yes," I said. "You dropped your ice cream on your shoe." He laughed. "That was the worst day." "No, it was funny," I said. "You tried to eat what was left of it." He smiled, but his eyes looked far away. "I'm going to miss this place." I wanted to say something that would make him stay, but I knew I couldn't. His family had to move. His dad needed the job. So I just said, "Maybe one day you'll come back." He looked at me. "Do you really think so?" "Yes," I said. "You'll visit. And we'll walk in the park again." He looked down at the table. "Maybe." We finished our ice creams and walked back to the oak tree. The rain stopped for a moment, and the air felt soft again. Tom reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded paper. "Here," he said. "It's for you." I took it carefully. "What is it?" "Don't open it yet," he said. "Read it when I'm gone." I looked at him. "Is it a letter?" He smiled but didn't answer. "Just promise me you'll read it later." "I promise," I said. He looked relieved. "Good." We stayed in the park until the afternoon. We didn't talk much after that. We just walked, sometimes side by side, sometimes quietly watching the ducks. I didn't want the day to end. I wanted the minutes to move slower. When we finally reached my house, Tom stopped by the gate. "I should go now," he said. "Okay." I said softly. He looked at me for a long time. Take care, Liz. You too, I said. He gave me a small smile, then turned and walked away. I stood there, watching him until he turned the corner and disappeared from view. When I went inside, the house felt very quiet. I sat on my bed and looked at the folded paper he gave me. For a long time, I just held it. Then I opened it slowly. The paper had a small drawing of the park. Under the tree, he had drawn two tiny figures, a boy and a girl. Under the drawing, he wrote, "For Liz, my best friend, my favorite Sunday. Tom." I felt tears fill my eyes, but I smiled. It was simple, just like him. That night, I put the paper inside a small box where I kept my favorite things. I touched the bracelet on my wrist and whispered, "Goodbye, Tom." But even as I said it, I hoped it wasn't forever. The week after Tom left felt long and quiet. The park was still there, the trees still green, the pond still calm. But everything felt different without him. I still woke up early on Sundays out of habit, but the morning air no longer felt the same. At first, I told myself that nothing had changed. I still took the same path, still walked under the same tall oak tree, but walking alone made me realize how much of that park had belonged to Tom. Every step reminded me of him. I could almost hear his laughter in the distance, soft and fading, like the echo of a song I could not forget. The first few days, I waited for a letter. I looked at the mailbox every morning before school, but there was nothing. The silence began to feel heavy. I tried not to think too much about it, but his absence stayed with me like a quiet shadow that followed me everywhere. One afternoon, I came home from school and found an envelope on the table. It had my name on it in small, neat letters. I knew that handwriting at once. My heart started to beat faster, and I sat down before opening it. Inside was a short letter written in pencil. He said his new town was much bigger than ours. The streets were full of noise and cars, and the school was different. He missed the quiet park. He missed our walks, and he missed me. He wrote that he had made new friends, but it did not feel the same. At the end, he wrote, "When I walk to school, I see a small tree near my house. It looks a bit like our oak tree. When I pass it, I think of you." I read the letter again and again. It wasn't long, but it felt like hearing his voice again for a moment. I smiled. Then I folded it carefully and placed it next to the drawing he gave me. Weeks turned into months. We wrote to each other often at first. His letters were full of stories about school, about his little sister, about his new town. I always answered. I told him about my parents, about the park, about how the ducks were still there. But slowly, the letters came less often. His last one arrived just before Christmas. In it, he said he was doing fine, that winter was cold, and that he hoped I was happy. He didn't say much more. After that, there were no more letters. Time moved on quietly. I started high school the next year. I made new friends, but none of them felt like Tom. Sometimes I walked past the park gate and thought of the times we sat there, eating ice cream and laughing about small things. I didn't stop walking in the park, though. It became a place where I could remember him without feeling sad all the time. As the seasons changed, the park changed too. In summer, the trees were full and bright. In autumn, the leaves turned gold and covered the ground like a warm carpet. In winter, the air was cold, and the pond froze a little at the edges. Every Sunday I went there, even when I had no one to walk with. I liked to sit under the oak tree and think about the things we said, the things we didn't say, and the simple moments that had once felt so ordinary, but now seemed so rare. Years passed. I grew older, taller, quieter. The bracelet he gave me became small on my wrist, but I never took it off. It had lost its shine, but I liked it that way. It looked like time, worn, soft, but still there. One spring morning when I was 16, I went to the park again. The day looked almost the same as it had 3 years earlier. The sky was blue, the air cool, the birds singing. I sat on the same bench under the same tree. For the first time, I didn't feel sad. I felt peaceful. As I sat there, I saw a family walking by. A father, a mother, and a boy about 10 years old. The boy laughed loudly and ran ahead. I watched them and smiled. It felt good to see other people making new memories in the same place where mine lived quietly. When I was about to leave, I noticed something on the ground near the bench. It was a small metal tag, shiny and new. Someone had fixed it to the side of the bench. I leaned closer and read the words engraved on it. To the park that holds our best days. For a moment, I stood still, my eyes on the small tag. I didn't know who put it there, but I smiled. Maybe it wasn't for me, but it felt like a small message from the past, a soft whisper that said it was okay to remember. When I walked home that day, I felt lighter. I no longer waited for letters. I no longer looked for old memories. I simply carried them with me, in quiet ways, in small thoughts, in the silver bracelet that still shone faintly in the sun. Years later, I left that town too. I went to another city for college. Life became busy, but sometimes, when I passed a park with trees and quiet paths, I remembered that one Sunday, the day he came early, the day we walked for the last time, the day I learned that goodbyes don't always mean endings. Some memories stay soft forever, and sometimes a simple walk in the park is all it takes to remember the kind of friendship that never truly leaves. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to English Medium Stories. Stay with us for more classic stories in easy English. My name is Jasmine. I am 27 years old. Last month, I lost my job. I worked as an office assistant in a company for almost 3 years. I liked my job because I enjoyed working with people. I was always on time, I never missed a day, and I tried to do everything right. But one morning, everything went wrong. That day, my boss asked me to finish a report before lunch. I was already working on another project, and I told him I needed more time. He became angry and said I was too slow. His voice was loud, and everyone in the office could hear him. I felt embarrassed and upset. I told him I was doing my best, but he did not listen. We started arguing. I did not plan to raise my voice, but I was tired and stressed. After that, he shouted, "If you do not like it here, you can leave." I was shocked. My hands were shaking. I packed my bag and walked out of the office. I did not even say goodbye to anyone. When I reached home, I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. My heart was heavy, and I did not know what to do next. I had rent to pay and bills waiting. My savings were small. For the first few days, I stayed at home and thought about what happened. I replayed that moment again and again in my mind. Maybe I should not have argued. Maybe I should have stayed calm. But it was too late now. After a week, I decided to look for a new job. I got up early every morning and searched online. I sent out applications to many companies. Some days, I went to the library to use their computer. I also checked newspapers for job ads, but most of the time, no one replied. I started to feel worried. I thought maybe no one wanted to hire me. I tried to stay positive, but every evening I felt more tired and sad. One morning, I saw an advertisement for an employment agency near my area. It said they could help people find jobs quickly. I put on my clean shirt, printed my CV, and went there. The office was small but clean. A friendly woman at the desk smiled at me and asked if I had an appointment. I said no, but I needed help finding work. She gave me a form to fill out with my name, age, and work experience. Then she asked me to wait. After a few minutes, another woman came to meet me. She looked kind and calm. She asked me what kind of job I wanted. I told her I had experience in office work, data entry, and customer service. She nodded and said, "You have good skills. You can apply for many positions." Her words gave me hope. She told me they would send my CV to several companies and call me if someone wanted to interview me. I thanked her and left the office. The sun was shining, but I felt mixed feelings inside. I was happy to start again, but scared of failing. On the way home, I bought a sandwich and sat in the park. I watched people walking, laughing, and talking. I wondered if they had problems like mine. I promised myself I would not give up. The next day, I woke up early and made a list of companies I wanted to apply to myself. I wrote short cover letters and printed copies of my CV. I decided to send some by regular mail instead of email because I thought maybe it would look more personal. I wanted people to see that I cared. Each morning, I walked to the post office with a few envelopes in my hand. The clerk smiled at me every time and said, "Another busy day?" I smiled back, even though I was tired. Weeks passed. Some companies sent polite rejection letters. Some did not answer at all. I started to think about my old job again. I missed some of my coworkers. They were nice to me and we worked well together. I did not miss my boss, though. He always made people nervous. I wondered if he was still shouting at others. One afternoon, I met my friend Julia at a small cafe near the bus stop. She also worked in an office before, but had changed her job last year. I told her everything about losing mine. She listened and said, "Sometimes things happen for a reason. Maybe something better is waiting for you." Her words were kind, but I did not fully believe them. Still, it felt nice to talk to someone who cared. After lunch, I went home and checked my emails again. Still nothing. I sat by the window and watched the cars pass. The days were starting to feel long and quiet. Every morning felt the same. Wake up, search for jobs, send applications, wait for replies. I began to question my worth. I started to think maybe I was not good enough. One evening, I received a phone call from the agency. The same woman I met before said, "We have a few new openings. Please come tomorrow morning." I felt a little spark of hope. The next day I went there again. She showed me a list of positions. Some were for office assistants, others for receptionists or data clerks. I filled out more forms and signed some papers. She said, "We will contact these companies today. Be patient. You are a good candidate." I thanked her and walked out of the office. I stopped at a small bakery nearby and bought a piece of bread. I looked at the people around me. Everyone seemed busy with their own lives. I wished to be busy too. I missed waking up with a plan, going to work, meeting people, doing something useful. Life without work felt empty. That night, I made a cup of tea and sat at the table with my notebook. I checked which companies I had already applied to and wrote down new ones. My table was full of papers, pens, and envelopes. I was tired but kept writing because I did not want to stop trying. My phone was silent, but I kept it close, hoping it would ring. The next morning, I walked to the mailbox near my building and sent 3 more letters. The wind was cold, and the sky was gray, but I did not care. I wanted to believe that something good would happen soon. I went home, cooked soup, and cleaned my room to keep my mind busy. Still, I kept thinking about my old office and the people there. I wondered if they remembered me. A few days later, I walked past my old office building by accident. It was near the supermarket. I looked up at the windows. Everything looked the same, but something felt different. I saw new faces through the glass. I quickly turned away and walked home. That night, I told myself to stop thinking about the past and focus on finding a new future. But deep inside, I still wished for one chance to start again. Before I continue rest of the story, please like, subscribe, share, and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot to me. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks. Every morning, I opened my laptop, made a cup of coffee, and started searching for jobs again. I checked the same websites, the same lists, but I still hoped for new results. Sometimes I found interesting jobs, but they wanted people with higher degrees. Sometimes I found small companies that looked perfect, but they never replied. Still, I didn't stop. I told myself, if I keep trying, something will happen. I also called the employment agency once a week. The woman there always spoke kindly. She said, "We are sending your details to many places. Please wait." I thanked her each time, even though I was tired of waiting. I tried to stay polite. I wanted to believe that someone would notice my name soon. To keep myself busy, I started helping my neighbor, Mrs. Brown. She was an old lady who lived alone. She often asked me to buy groceries or help her carry things. She always gave me tea after, and we talked. One day she said, "You are a hard worker, dear. Someone will see that soon." Her words made me smile. I didn't tell her how worried I was, but her kindness helped. A few days later, I received an email from a small company. They asked if I could come for an interview. I felt excited. I wore my best clothes and went early. The office was small but nice. A man and a woman interviewed me. They asked about my experience, my old company, and what kind of work I liked. I answered honestly and tried to smile. After 30 minutes, they thanked me and said they would call soon. I left the office feeling hopeful. 2 days passed. No call. 3 days. Still nothing. I finally sent a short email to ask if they had made a decision. They replied the next day, "We have chosen another candidate, but thank you for your time." I stared at the message for a long time. I felt sad, but also used to it by now. I closed my laptop and took a walk to clear my head. Outside, the air was cool and quiet. I watched people going to work, carrying bags, talking on the phone. I missed that life. I missed having a reason to wake up early. I missed the feeling of doing something important. When I came home, I sat by the window again and watched the sky turn orange. I told myself, tomorrow will be better. The next morning, I received a letter from the employment agency. They had found another possible job for me. The position was for a receptionist at a small clinic. I went there the same afternoon. The clinic was clean, with white walls and soft music. The doctor was polite. He asked me about my skills and how I worked with people. Everything went well. He said they would decide in a few days. That evening, I felt a little happy. I made soup and watched an old movie on TV. I even sang a little while washing dishes. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. But when the phone finally rang 3 days later, it wasn't good news. The clinic had chosen someone with more experience. I thanked them and hung up. My smile disappeared. I sat down and looked around my small kitchen. It felt too quiet again. The next week, I decided to change my method. Instead of sending many applications quickly, I decided to send only a few, but write better letters for each one. I wanted every company to see that I was serious. I also started sending some by traditional mail again. It felt old-fashioned, but maybe it would make my letters stand out. I bought good paper and envelopes from the shop near the station. I wrote carefully and checked every word before I mailed them. Each day I sent 2 or 3 letters. I went to the post office every morning. The clerk there already knew me. He said, "Still sending applications?" I smiled and said, "Yes, still trying." He wished me good luck every time. I liked that small moment of kindness. One afternoon, I met Julia again at the cafe. She looked bright and cheerful. She asked how my search was going. I told her I was still looking. She said, "Don't give up. Sometimes the best things come when you stop expecting them." I laughed softly and said, "Then maybe I should stop expecting anything." We both smiled, but deep down, I felt tired. After that day, I tried to focus on simple things. I cleaned my room, cooked better food, and took short walks in the evening. It helped me feel calmer. But at night, when I lay in bed, my thoughts came back. What if no one ever called? What if I never worked again? I tried not to cry, but sometimes tears came anyway. Then one morning, I received a phone call from the agency again. The woman said, We have one new opening in a small logistics company. They are looking for an office assistant. The salary is fair, and the office is near your area. Would you like to apply?" I quickly said yes. She told me to send my updated CV. I did it right away. 2 days later, I was invited for an interview. I wore my clean white blouse and black skirt. I reached early again and waited in the lobby. A young man came to meet me. He was polite and asked about my work habits. Everything went well. He even smiled and said, "You seem very organized." I smiled back and thanked him. When I left the building, I felt good for the first time in a while. That night I made tea and waited for a message or call, but none came that day. I told myself, maybe tomorrow. I checked my phone every hour. 2 days passed. Still nothing. Then I received a message. "We are sorry, but we have chosen another person." I put my phone down and sighed. I felt disappointed again. After that, I took 2 days off from searching. I stayed home, read a book, and tried to relax. I needed to rest my mind. Then I started again. I couldn't stop now. I opened my notebook, wrote down new company names, and began again. I sent more emails, more letters. Every time I walked to the post office, I told myself that maybe the next one would change my life. Weeks passed. Winter was near, and the air was cold. I wore my old coat and scarf when I went out. I still had enough money for food and rent, but not much more. Sometimes I worried about what would happen if I didn't find a job soon. Still, I tried to keep hope. I told myself, something good will come. Just wait. One afternoon, I came home from the store and checked my mailbox. There were 2 small letters. One was a bill, and the other looked like a company envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it, but it was only a rejection. I sighed and placed it on the table. I made tea and sat down. I felt tired but not ready to give up. I said quietly, "Tomorrow I will send more applications." I didn't know that the next letter would change everything. The next week started like every other week. I woke up early, made breakfast, and opened my laptop. I checked my email inbox, but there was nothing new. The screen looked the same as yesterday and the day before. I sighed and closed it. The morning light came through the window, and I looked outside. The street was quiet. A man was walking his dog. A woman carried a bag of bread. Life was moving, but mine felt stuck. After a few minutes, I made a list of 3 more companies to send applications to. I checked my CV again and printed fresh copies. The printer made small sounds as the papers came out. I looked at them carefully to make sure everything was right. I folded them neatly and put them into clean envelopes. Then I wrote the addresses by hand, trying to make my writing look nice. At the post office, the clerk smiled at me again. "Another busy morning?" he said kindly. I smiled and said, "Yes, still trying my best." He stamped the envelopes and wished me good luck. I thanked him and walked home. The sky was gray and the air was cold. I pulled my coat tighter and tried to think of something good. When I got home, I made soup and sat at the small table. I looked at the pile of old letters from companies that said sorry or "we have chosen someone else." I wanted to throw them away, but I didn't. They reminded me that I was trying. Each letter was a small piece of my effort. I took a deep breath and put them back in the box. The next few days passed slowly. I cleaned the house, washed clothes, and checked emails again. Nothing. Some days, I walked in the park just to see other people. I liked watching children play or parents feeding birds. It made me forget my worries for a while. In the evenings, I read small stories online to keep my mind busy, but every night before sleeping, I looked at my phone one last time, just in case there was a message. One morning, I woke up to the sound of the postman outside. I heard letters drop through my door. I went to pick them up. There were 2 envelopes. One was from the electricity company, and the other had no name on the front, only a logo. The logo looked familiar, but I couldn't remember from where. I placed both letters on the table and made tea first. I told myself I would open them after breakfast. I ate slowly, trying not to think too much, but my eyes kept going back to that second envelope. It had a light blue color and clean design. Something about it made me curious. Finally, I finished eating and took it in my hands. The paper felt thick. I looked closer at the top corner. The logo seemed familiar, too familiar. Then I saw the name of the sender. My hands froze. It was from my old company. I stared at it for a few seconds, not sure what to think. My heart began to beat faster. Why were they sending me a letter now? I had left that place almost 2 months ago. Maybe it was about some papers I forgot to sign. Maybe they wanted to ask for something. I opened the envelope carefully. The first line of the letter was polite. "Dear Ms. Jasmine," it said. "We hope you are doing well." I continued reading. My eyes moved slowly down the page. Then I stopped. I read one sentence again to make sure I understood it correctly. They said they wanted to offer me my old position again. For a moment, I couldn't believe what I was reading. I read the same line 3 times. My eyes went back to the letterhead. Yes, it was the same logo. It was my old company. I looked again at the sender's name. It wasn't my old boss. It was someone new, someone I didn't know. I kept reading. The letter explained that there had been changes in management. My former boss was no longer working there. He had been fired for unprofessional behavior and complaints from staff. The new manager had reviewed the records and saw that my work had been good and consistent. They wanted me to return and take back my position if I was still available. I put the letter down and covered my mouth with my hand. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. For weeks I had been sending letters to strangers, and now the one letter I never expected came from the place I had left behind. I sat quietly for a few minutes, thinking about everything. I remembered the day I walked out of that office, angry and embarrassed. I remembered the long nights of searching for jobs, the letters, the rejections, the waiting. I thought about how much I had doubted myself. And now, suddenly, the same company wanted me back. I felt both happy and nervous. Part of me wanted to say yes right away. I missed having work. I missed the daily routine. And I missed feeling useful. But another part of me felt afraid. What if things didn't change? What if the new manager was like the old one? I looked at the letter again. It said I could visit the office any time in the next few days to talk about the details. I folded the paper and placed it on the table. Then I made another cup of tea. The steam rose slowly as I watched it. I thought about everything that had happened, the arguments, the silence, the effort, and the waiting. I realized something important. Sometimes life closes one door just to open the same one again, but in a better way. I finished my tea and looked at the letter one more time. The logo still looked familiar, but this time it made me smile. The letterhead looked quite familiar. Then I looked at the sender. I couldn't believe it. Apparently, my former company had fired my old boss, and now they were offering me the same position I had before. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to English Medium Stories. Stay with us for more classic stories in easy English.